Most people chase visibility. You step away from it. And psychology explains why. We live in a world where everything is shared. You see breakfasts, vacations, faces from every angle, filtered and polished. Social media has turned into a stage where billions perform every day, chasing validation through likes, hearts, and comments. But then there are people like you, the ones who never post their own photos, the ones who politely decline invitations with a quiet smile. You're the one who sits calmly at parties, watching instead of performing. You seem completely okay being invisible in a world that's obsessed with being seen. And maybe that's exactly who you are. Or maybe you recognize someone like this. And if you've ever wondered why someone would choose to stay hidden in an age of oversharing, this will help you understand the psychology behind it. And trust this, it goes much deeper than it seems. Let's start with what most people get wrong. When someone avoids posting photos or staying in the spotlight, people assume insecurity, shyness, antisocial behavior, maybe even that something is broken. But here's the twist. You might actually be one of the most secure people in the room. People who constantly post are often searching for something: validation, approval, a digital reflection that tells them they matter. And there's nothing wrong with wanting that. Everyone wants connection. But when you don't post, it may be because you've already found what most people spend their entire lives chasing: a sense of self-worth that doesn't rely on anyone else. Think about it. If you already feel solid inside, why would you need strangers to confirm it? If you know who you are, why would you need to perform that identity online? You're not hiding. You're just not seeking. And in a world addicted to external validation, that choice is almost radical. But let's go deeper, because not everyone avoids the spotlight from a place of confidence. Sometimes you do it because life taught you to. Maybe showing vulnerability once felt dangerous. Maybe you were judged, criticized, or misunderstood so often that putting yourself out there now feels like handing someone a weapon. So you pull back. Not because you don't want connection, but because you learned that protection feels safer than exposure. Psychologists call this avoidant attachment or hypervigilance, a survival response formed when the world felt unsafe. You're not antisocial. You're self-protective. And honestly, who could blame you? Posting a photo opens the door to judgment, comparison, and the exhausting pressure to always be on. For you, it can feel easier to opt out, to protect your peace, to decide what parts of your life are shared and what stays sacred. And then there's another layer: introversion. You don't hate people. Social interaction just drains you, even online. Posting a photo isn't just clicking a button, it's an exchange of energy. It invites comments, messages, expectations, and constant digital noise. For you, solitude isn't loneliness. It's space to breathe. It's where your thoughts finally become clear, where reflection turns into understanding, where you recharge without the world asking for more. You stay quiet not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting your energy. And in a world that glorifies extroversion, that's often misunderstood. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Sometimes you avoid posting photos because you value authenticity over performance. You see social media for what it really is: a highlight reel, a carefully edited version of life, and you choose not to participate. You don't want to distort yourself for likes. You don't want to shrink your identity into a filtered image or a clever caption. To you, who you truly are can't be captured in a picture. You'd rather be unseen than misrepresented. This is identity preservation. You're not rejecting connection. You're rejecting the performance of connection. And that takes courage. So the next time someone sees you living quietly, they shouldn't assume you're hiding. You might be confident. You might be protecting yourself. You might be conserving energy. Or you might simply refuse to perform. In a world that screams for attention, the most powerful choice may be knowing you don't need it. Here's something most people don't realize about constantly being online. There's a scientific term for it: audience fatigue, or self-objectification. Studies show that when you post photos of yourself regularly, your brain starts to see you as an object to be evaluated. You begin looking at yourself through other people's eyes. You become both the performer and the critic. And that split is exhausting. Researchers at Harvard found that people who frequently post selfies score higher in narcissism, but lower in self-compassion. Think about that. The more validation you seek online, the harder it becomes to be kind to yourself. Every photo turns into a test. Every post becomes a performance review, and it never feels like enough. But when you don't post, you step out of that cycle entirely. You refuse to let algorithms decide your worth. You refuse to let strangers measure your value. And by doing that, you protect something rare: your intrinsic sense of self, an identity that doesn't rise or fall with external feedback. That kind of stability is becoming rarer every day. So when you see someone who never posts their photo, don't assume insecurity. You might be looking at someone deeply psychologically grounded. You've chosen to build your identity privately, away from noise, away from performance, away from the endless need to prove yourself to people who don't even matter. Now let's talk about what happens when you spend a lot of time alone, whether by choice or circumstance. Solitude shapes you. It sharpens your emotional intelligence. You start noticing patterns in your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions. You can read a room before anyone speaks. You understand yourself in ways others never will. Many artists, writers, and thinkers chose solitude for this reason. You let it fuel creativity. You prefer deep conversations over small talk, meaning over quantity. But solitude has a shadow side. Sometimes you're alone not because you chose it, but because life pushed you there. Maybe you have few close friends. Maybe your relationships feel shallow. Maybe your family doesn't truly see you. So you appear confident, hide your vulnerability, and keep your distance. This is protective solitude, a survival strategy. You learned that relying on others could hurt, so you learned to rely on yourself. And still, somewhere deep inside, there's a quiet wish for someone to simply ask, "Are you okay?" Here's the paradox. Being alone can feel like freedom and isolation at the same time. It can be peace and loneliness. Some days, solitude feels like safety. Other days, it feels like invisibility. That tension, between the freedom of being alone and the ache of being unseen, defines you. You're not broken. You're a survivor, a thinker, a feeler, a quiet warrior navigating a world that often misunderstands you. You remind us that happiness doesn't always come from crowds, that strength isn't just endurance but self-trust, that connection isn't only external, it's deeply internal. So why do you avoid photos? Why do you choose solitude? It isn't insecurity. It isn't vanity. It's about protecting your space, your peace, and your authenticity in a world that constantly demands more from you. You don't need validation because you already know your worth. And that is powerful. Here's the truth. Whether you seek solitude or connection, neither defines your value. But understanding why you need what you need, when it heals you, when it protects you, can help you live more fully, love more freely, and finally feel at peace with yourself. And sometimes, it helps you realize that the world is still waiting for the real you, the one who is always there, quietly growing, quietly surviving, quietly learning how to thrive. So think about it for a second. Which one are you? Do you love sharing photos and being seen? Or do you feel better keeping your life more private? Tell me in the comments. I really want to know which one you relate to. And if this video spoke to you, don't forget to subscribe. It truly supports the channel and helps us keep creating content like this.